Special guest alert. On today's show, we're bringing on ESPN's Kris Rhim. He tells us about everything that's been happening on day 2 of Chargers training camp, including some guys that have been standing out that you might not expect.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, David Droegemeier, and I've been covering the Chargers for 9 seasons, but this is my 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you so much to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and to make sure that you never miss big guest interviews like I have today with Kris Rhim, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. That's right. On today's show, I'm going to be talking with ESPN's Kris Rhim. He tells us about everything that's been happening at Chargers training camp, especially on day 2 of pads as we are today. He tells us that Joe Alt and Joey Bosa are appointment television. He also tells us about some of the players that have been a little bit under the radar that have been standing out, and some of the differences between Jim Harbaugh and his brother, John Harbaugh. And we're going to get into all of that and more on this interview. But first, I got to tell you about Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, without any further ado, here he is, Kris Rhim. All right, guys, here we are with our very special guest for today's show. It is Kris Rhim. Kris Rhim covers the Chargers for ESPN, also formerly covered the Ravens for the Baltimore Banner. Make sure and go follow Kris on X at KrisRhim1. He does an absolutely fantastic job covering the Chargers. Kris, thanks so much for giving us some of your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. Happy to be here. So thanks again.
Multiple repeat guest. We loved him, so we had to bring him on again. You were out at day 6 of Chargers training camp on Tuesday on the second day of padded practices, which is when things kind of start to heat up. What were your biggest takeaways from Tuesday's practice?
Yeah, Tuesday's practice, I think, firstly, like, this is a second day in a row, but Joey Bosa and Joe Alt, man, that's must-see TV. Like, it is. I mean, I thought yesterday they were getting after it, but today even more so. And I think each one, you know, had wins. Obviously, I think Joey probably had more wins, you know, as he should. But I don't think by any means Joe looked like a slouch or anything. I think he stood Joey up a bunch. He you know, won his fair share of reps. So that's what I've been having my eyes on. And then Jaret Patterson, I mean, he's had a really good camp. It's, you know, before it's, you know, we're kind of just getting into it now, right?
Sure.
So I should say he's had a really good first 2 days of the real football. Even last week, he was catching a lot of passes, but that's just whatever. But today he broke a bunch of tackles and leaped over the center to get in the end zone. Jim Harbaugh ran and gave him a high five. So Greg Roman talked about him after. He's really excited about him, you know, have a chance to compete. So from today, those 2 things stand out to me for sure.
Yeah, I know that Charger fans are very eager to see what Joe Alt's all about and if he can hold his own, but also I think they should be equally as excited that Joey Bosa is healthy and feeling good and looking strong, because when he is right, he is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and he's kind of been sorely missed for the last couple of seasons. Just, you were kind of banking on him to be able to come in and provide some quality snaps, but unfortunately, the injury bug's really been biting him. So hopefully, you know, he's healthy. But for the Chargers defense to make a major turnaround in 2024, they will need a much better version of Derwin James. We're hopeful that he'll be able to play, you know, better and faster under new defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. How do you think he's performed so far in camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think Derwin's done as well as I would expect, right? I mean, I guess Derwin's game is so built on hitting people, and, like, you know, really blowing up plays with these really impactful hits, right? And he can't do that, and he shouldn't do that, right? So, I mean, we have a joint practice. The Chargers have a joint practice with the Rams on like August 4th, I believe. So I think there we'll get to see. I don't think the Rams want him killing anybody on their team either, but I think he might not hold back a little bit as much as he holds back here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Derwin's been good. But again, it's hard to, a guy like that, you really want to see him like hit somebody, because that's what he does.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think for Derwin, you want to make sure that he's doing it the right way because and also not being self-conscious about it too, because I think last year we got a couple of those, personal foul penalties of kind of, knocking somebody's block off a couple of
Yeah.
different times. It seemed like he got a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger on a couple of plays, and I think that did affect his tackling.
Yeah, and he said at one point, like, I feel like I'm being targeted, and I mean, he might not be wrong. Like,
It definitely felt that way.
yeah, it kind of seemed that way, and so hopefully he's still the hitter that he was before for the defense's sake, because when he's hitting and when he's not being penalized for an illegal hit, he's a fearful player, right? Like a impactful guy.
I mean, he's one of those rare athletes. Like when he goes downhill, like it's something to behold. Like he's like a cheetah that's just attacking. Like it's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible how quickly he gets to full speed. And I definitely feel like that type of gameplay, it scares the opposing offenses a little bit with what he's able to do.
Definitely. And Josh Palmer actually talked about that today. Like he was saying, going up against the defense, he always, kind of tries to keep his eye on Derwin, especially in the run game. Today they were doing a lot of, heavy set run, working on the run game.
Yeah.
And Josh says, whenever he's lined up with Derwin, he knows Derwin's going to bring it, so he has to be ready, and he wants to, bring it back to him. So, even his own teammates know.
Absolutely. So sticking with the defensive side here, the Chargers showed a ton of faith in Kristian Fulton by not, giving him much competition for the starting job on the outside at cornerback, besides, probably Cam Hart and the former 7th round pick, Dean Leonard. How's his training camp been so far, at least 6 practices in?
Yeah, 6 practices in. I mean, Kristian has looked good, man. He's got a couple, pass breakups. I think first few days he might have had a pick, if I can remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, these are the these 2 days are when it's really really getting into the flow, and he's looked good, man. Today was more of a, I mean, they did throw, but today was really run focused. I feel like it was they were trying to establish run, and we got to see kind of a little bit of what those heavy 13 type looks are gonna look like. So yeah, I would say with Kristian, with the cornerbacks, they might not be done. Even though it's it's about to be August. We've seen things like this before, right? I wouldn't say that the especially Joe Ortiz and what we know about the Ravens, and maybe it's not a Stephon Gilmore, or maybe it is, but there could be somebody added if they feel like they need that, right? And they probably would need some time through these camp to see that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to try to evaluate what you have there, because that's a really important position. Obviously, I think you feel pretty decent about what Asante Samuel Jr. brings on one side, on the outside. But Kristian Fulton's a guy that's kind of looking for a bounce back season. He's had a couple of down seasons. He's been dealing with some injuries. But the positive thing is Kristian Fulton's still so very young. I mean, he's still only 25 years old. So, I mean, hopefully, just with the change of scenery, that his best football is in front of him.
Yeah.
But, moving on here to the offensive side, one of the players that you told us, that was standing out early during the offseason was veteran wide receiver DJ Chark. We're only 6 days into camp, obviously, so, it's a little bit early, but there's been a few clips out there of him making some big plays. Do you think it's starting to become clear what Chark's role is going to be in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think DJ, I think it's becoming, and maybe some people, understood this, but I think through these first 6 practices, it's becoming clear that, like, I think DJ's signing was somewhat of like somewhat of an afterthought. Yeah. I think it was like, okay, you got a vet in the room, and he'll help, mentor Quinn and Ladd, and maybe he'll be, that next guy, right? But the way I think it's clear that no, he might be like wide receiver too. You know what I mean? Like he might be that. Like it's the way he looks better than a lot of the receivers out there. He might have looked the best through 6 days, right? And I think that's a legit competition that maybe a lot of us underestimated, like how good he was going to look. So he had a 60-yard TD today. He had this grab with Cam Hart draped all over him, trying to take the ball out, open underneath. He's quick, so I think for me it's shown as far as his role. he'll be that big, deep target. He can stretch the defense. He can, run any route, right? I don't think he's going to be like a slot guy, though. I think he can, if they need him to do that, he could do that, right? But to me, it's like, yeah, DJ Chark is not playing around. Like he's in competition. He looks good.
We're going to get back into this interview with Kris Rhim, and he's going to tell us about some of the under the radar players that have been standing out so far in Chargers training camp. But first, I got to tell you guys about Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can get zone deals where you save even more when you choose the section and let Game Time choose the seats. They have all-in pricing, which toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. One of my favorite things about Game Time is getting a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Yeah, he's trying to make himself some money, right? Like he's on a 1-year contract and he wants to show everybody like, hey, I've had a 1,000-yard season under my belt and I can still go. I can still make big plays. Don't look at what I was doing last season with a rookie quarterback. Now that I'm with Justin Herbert, we're going to really make some fireworks. And I see it. Like this guy's explosive. Like I can see him making some big plays for the Chargers. So I'll be looking forward to watching him. But another guy on the offense that, we feel like has been pretty consistent, at least this offseason, is Joshua Palmer. And I think Joshua Palmer is probably likely to be the number one wide receiver when all things are said and done, because, he's been the most productive and he has the most recent rapport with Justin Herbert. Has he stood out to you during camp or as someone who can fill that role?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Josh is just consistent. He's a steady guy. He has that comfort, like you said. He's also been waiting for this shot, right? He sat behind Keenan and Mike. He watched the Chargers draft a receiver in the first round. He's kind of beating out that first round receiver, continuing to do so. I think that motivates him. And I do recognize like that he has a look when he talks about it. He doesn't go into like, I'm the guy in the room or I'm supposed to be the guy in the room, but he knows what it is and the opportunity he has this year. And he kind of alludes to it sometimes, this is a big year for him contract wise. He won't say that, but he'll say something like, it's my 4th year when I was drafted. And then he'll say like all the stuff that doesn't matter, but we know it matters. Right. Like so I think the coaches like Josh and he's just like a steady guy, right? Super even keeled, just gets the job done and he wants it. He clearly wants it.
Yeah, I mean, he has a really well-rounded skill set. I mean, when I look at Josh Palmer, I look at a guy that, when he showed up with the Chargers, he showed up before practice, showed up after practice, was trying to take that time to really establish that chemistry with Justin Herbert. And he's had to wait, he's had to be like one of those quarterbacks that had that franchise guy that had to wait until he left, until he got that opportunity to shine. And now he's the guy. Now he's the number one guy. And now he gets the opportunity to go out there and try to be that. And hopefully he's able to stay healthy and not let the injuries hold him back, because I think to me, that's the only thing that's going to get in his way is if he gets hurt. But when we last talked to you, you gave us some advice on which was, if anyone's telling you that any offensive lineman's doing anything before the pads come on, you really can't trust it. And so the Chargers need their offensive line to be better for this offense to work. Now that they're 2 days into padded practices, what have your impressions been of that unit?
Yeah, so the unit that we're looking at now is, because Rashawn Slater hasn't practiced, it's not the one that will likely see game one, unless that injury that we don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound like it's something to be concerned about, but yeah, it is. If it isn't, then this is not the group that we're looking at, which is, currently it changes depending on what they're in, but it's usually, Trey Pipkins, at right or left, Trey or Joe at right or left, and then see Zion, Jamari, Bradley Bozeman. So I think the group has looked good. I think they fared well. I think Khalil definitely got some reps over on Trey a couple times for sure. But I think Joe is really steady on wherever he's at. He's super steady.
That's good.
I think Bozeman looks comfortable, as well as Zion looks comfortable up there. Jamari went down with an injury today. Actually, he walked off with trainers. But yeah, I think 2 days in, I think the O line looks good, and they don't even have Rashawn. So yeah, I would be encouraged if I was a Charger fan.
Yeah, so obviously, hopefully Rashawn, comes back to practice and he's not seriously hurt, because Rashawn Slater is one of the best tackles in the NFL. And we've seen, as far as like me, I've covered the Chargers for almost a decade, and I've seen a lot of really bad left tackles, okay, that have lined up and played for the Chargers. And so it's been a real blessing to watch Rashawn out there, because he's just a technical monster. Like, he really truly is one of the best tackles in the league. So hopefully he's able to come back and shake off whatever is ailing him. Obviously, we know that he's just working through something, because that's all Coach Harbaugh is going to tell us. But everyone knows that the big names on this team, and it's no surprise to see some of them making some splash plays in camp. But what we want to know is there any player, on the team that, didn't really have any expectations that has kind of caught your eye at practice?
Yeah. That caught my eye. I didn't really have an expectation. I mean, it would be Jaret Patterson for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he, but I kind of mentioned him already. So maybe what Brendan, I mean, maybe Brendan Bryce has caught my eye.
Yeah.
Because he just the way he high points the ball, the way, and I don't want to say I didn't have any expectations for him, because I kind of did, right?
Yeah.
Even though he dropped, I think I expected him to play well. So maybe Zach Heins, maybe to the tight end, Zach Heins, right? Like he's just, every time you look up, he's making a catch, he's making a grab, like he's always open, like he is 24 hours.
7-Eleven.
Yeah, 7-Eleven. He's never closed. Like he's always making these catches. He kind of reminds me of this is random, but the Ravens had a guy last, Charlie Kohler. He was just always open. Like Charlie ended up, being on a practice squad, right? He ended up, we thought he might make the team, and he reminds me of him. The dude is just consistent. He's catching the ball every time, and I think that's encouraging.
He's a big dude, man. He seems like he's the type of tight end that would fit in with what Jim Harbaugh is looking for. 6'5", 6'6", 260, has that kind of blocking pedigree. And if he's able to show some chops as a receiver, I mean, I really like his, prospects of potentially making this team.
Yeah, for sure, man. And the way they want to run the ball, it's just give me all the tight ends I could get, especially if you could catch and block. So yeah, he's definitely caught my eye, and he would be, I'd say, yeah. So him, Zach, Jaret, and then Brendan probably be my three. But though I don't think Brendan really counts, because I think we had expectations for Brendan.
Yeah, I think we all kind of expected him to kind of make this team, right? I mean, I think it was going to be him or Cornelius Johnson. I don't think it's going to be both of them. I just don't think that they're going to carry more than 6 wide receivers. But another guy that's kind of stood out to me is Jordan McFadden, and the way that they've been using him. I think it's been pretty crazy. It seems like they're getting him to catch some passes. They're lining him up at fullback. They're lining him up on the line as an extra blocker. It seems like they see something in Jordan McFadden to use him as more of like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't say him. Maybe I just got used to seeing him at fullback or lined up at receiver, because it's been 6 days. But yeah, he for sure was like, what's going on? Like, why is, he's motioning out wide, and he's doing all this stuff pre-snap, this massive dude. He's taking snaps after practice, getting handoffs. So yeah, he's gonna be super important to this group, and they're gonna use him in ways that I don't think any of us saw coming.
Or himself.
Jim Harbaugh said that it was actually Joe Ortiz's idea for Jordan to play fullback, because Jim said he saw him, and I think he said his original plan was like he would play center, and then he said, oh yeah, then Joe said, what about trying him at fullback? And Jim said he went like, duh, and then that was now we see Jordan everywhere on the offense, man. So that, yeah, for sure, definitely him.
I mean, which other team has a 300+ pound fullback? That would be the Baltimore Ravens, right? Where,
Yep.
you know, he just came from with Patrick Ricard, who
Patrick
is an
Ricard,
absolute animal. So maybe he looks at Jordan McFadden and says, I think he can do some of the things that he's doing.
I guarantee you that's probably exactly what Joe said. Like, we got a guy who plays fullback, who could legitimately play anywhere on our O-line. Like, and I think Ricard did at times last year.
Yeah.
So that definitely had to be a part of the conversation. It's just cool to see 71 out wide. Like, it's just, you know, him motioning pre-snap. Yeah, that surprised me for sure.
That's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to see what they cook up with Jordan McFadden. We're going to get back into this interview with Kris Rhim, talking about some of the question marks on the defensive line and the incredible dependability of Cameron Dicker. But first, I got to tell you guys about FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Today, I'm looking at the Olympics and the U.S. national women's soccer team, and I'm looking at anytime goal scorers, and I love Sophia Smith to score at plus 115. But if you're looking for bigger odds, you could go with Trinity Rodman to score a goal anytime at plus 220. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. But it's crazy to think that, because, you know, you've been here for a while, that this is the last time that you were covering John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens training camp. What has been the kind of biggest similarities and differences in how the Harbaugh brothers conduct their training camp?
I think John does a little bit less of a glide. That Jim Harbaugh talked about with this, they're coming up to 30,000 feet, and they don't want people hitting, and they don't want, it's really like, first week was kind of, flag football in a way, after that first day when he like kind of laid down the law again. So I think when I was in Baltimore, it was just like, sometimes I would just be like, oh my God, like it was just people hitting
right away.
Roquan Smith, just abusing undrafted rookie running backs. Like it was just kind of like,
welcome to the NFL, kid.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a war out there. So I think that like he'll let guys kind of touch up on each other a little bit more, which I'm sure a lot of coaches do. I think what the sense I've got, and I've been at Atlanta camp, I've been at Jets camp. Everyone does it a little bit differently. I think Jim is on the kind of far end of letting these guys get into it, which guys seem to like. The other difference is John Harbaugh would practice at like 2 o'clock every day, pretty much the hottest part of the day in humid Baltimore. 100 heat index, whatever, humidity. Whereas Jim does this 2-hour delayed start, aggregated start, so everyone gets 24 hours of rest each day. So those are differences. But yeah, they're very different. Like, to be brothers, they're super different. Even the way, as you've seen them talk.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Jim's a character, man. I mean, you would know, right? You're in those press conferences, and some of the things that he says is just absolutely hilarious. But he's always himself. Like every single day, he's the same person. And I think that that mixed with the track record of playing in the league and winning as a coach has got the players to really buy in really, really quickly with, what he brings to the table. And so we know that's, so very important. But the defensive line is one of the biggest question marks on this team. And one of the only additions to that room that they made is 4th round pick Justin Eboigbe. He wasn't mentioned by Jim Harbaugh when talking about the defensive line. Has Eboigbe done anything to stand out at this point, or is he going to be having some work to do to get some defensive snaps?
Yeah, that did stand out to me too, that he didn't mention Justin. I don't know if it's any reason for concern. I would also say that I don't know if I don't know if I've looked at the interior D line and thought really anybody has been
spectacular or anything,
right? Yeah, spectacular for me to say that Justin isn't or anything like that, right? So I think he's right where he should be. He's in there, he's making plays, getting reps. So I shouldn't say making plays because if he made a play, I would have said that. But
yeah.
So so yeah, I think he's right. But I haven't looked and see him getting stood up or see him getting pancaked or feeling like he's behind the 8 ball. I think that could have just been a slip. Jim Harbaugh, might just things are going. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about him. But yeah, he hasn't been someone who I'm like, oh, he's standing out for good or bad reasons.
All right. So yeah, just got to get a little bit more time to evaluate what the rookie's going to be able to do, because that defensive line group, I mean, there's just a lot of uncertainty there. I mean, what Morgan Fox brings to the table, Poona Ford's a veteran here in that room, but besides that, you just don't know who's going to step up and who's going to be able to grab some snaps, because like that's one of the more, concerning position groups on this team. But one of the most underrated players on the Chargers is Cameron Dicker, and he's been historically accurate over his first 2 seasons with the team, and it seems like that has continued in training camp. The question is this: have you seen Dicker the kicker miss a single kick during camp so far?
Nah, I think he's 20 for 20 since camp started, and today there was a heavy wind, heavy breeze, so he was kicking him, and every kick kind of started outside of the why are my words escaping me, but outside of the post, right? It would start outside of the post, and it would curve in every time. Like every time it was curving in. The past few days there hasn't been as much of a breeze, so he's just been kicking them straight down the middle. But I feel like the first 2 I saw go up, I'm like, oh, that's gone. But he was looking at the flags, and every single time they whipped right in, like every single. So he's been money. I don't even really think about it when he think about him missing, really. Yeah, so he's been on it, man.
That's such an amazing feeling too, because we've seen a lot of kickers wear a Chargers uniform in the last couple of seasons. I mean a lot. Yeah. I think it's probably been 7 or 8 different guys. Yeah. And then, they give Cameron Dicker an opportunity where they pretty much signed him off the street where he was at a concert and he had to go play for the Chargers, and then parlay that into a contract and seemingly a long-term spot with the team. So, I mean, that just goes to show you get an opportunity, you got to grab the bull by the horns and take it. And Cameron Dicker's been absolutely incredible since he has been the kicker of the Chargers. But that's going to wrap things up for this interview here with Kris. Make sure you guys go follow Kris's work on ESPN, of course, and on X. Go follow him at Kris Rhim 1. He is fantastic. He does a great job of covering the Chargers. Kris, thank you so much for having some time for us today, and we hope to get you back on the show soon.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Kris Rhim was absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate him giving some of his time today to talk about what happened at day 2 of Chargers training camp. And on tomorrow's show, I'm going to have a familiar face back on the show. Daniel Wade, my good old partner, is joining me for Thursdays and Fridays episode of the Locked On Chargers podcast. But until then, make sure that you go follow us on our YouTube channel at Locked On Chargers. Go follow us on Facebook at Locked On Chargers and our Instagram at Locked On Chargers. And of course, on Twitter at Locked On LAC. You can find me on Twitter at DroTalkSD and my partner Daniel Wade on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports. Make sure you're back with me tomorrow to catch up with what Daniel Wade's been going on, and so we can talk about everything that's been happening at Chargers training camp. But until tomorrow, go Bolts.